Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields, and today I have Bayle Jensen from Swell, which is a company that she'll explain a little bit about that can really help physical therapists in their in patient engagement retention, and also help them get more online reviews. So I'll let her explain a little bit about that as we get into it. But first of all, thanks for joining me today, Bayle.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Nathan.
All right. Well, Bayle is business development and partnership manager for Swell. And her job, especially, is to work in this physical therapy space, as we're talking about it today. She works with other healthcare industries, but today we're talking specifically about physical therapy because she does have some experience specific to physical therapy. And so we wanted to help PT owners do a little bit better with that patient engagement side, the patient retention side, minimize drop-offs, you name it. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. So before we get into that, Bayle, do you mind sharing with us a little bit about your professional path and what got you to where you are now and your experience with physical therapy?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll kind of take this back to college. So I studied communications in college, loved it, didn't know how that would apply to the real world. But I kind of found the space within tech that was communications. I've been working in the healthcare industry for years now. I was in dental for a while, and then I switched over into like the medical rehab, so podiatry, physical therapy, chiropractic. But I really do love physical therapy, and I think part of the reason is no injury is the same. You kind of go into dental and there's a few things, and so it's like a plug and play. But I
Okay.
really like how different PT is, and I love working with that. So I work with our key opinion leaders, different organizations and companies within the PT space, and then of course just one-offs with my offices there.
All right, cool. And so what are you working on now, and how are you really focused on helping physical therapy and physical therapy owners at this time to improve that patient engagement side?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a few ways that we can take this. But basically, what the Swell platform does and what we're trying to do is just help automate but personalize that communication with those patients. We're all busy and we're living in such a very changing world. It's really hard to
Mhm.
kind of get into that flow or have like your schedule down. So, what we're trying to do is just make it really easy for the office to use, but also easy for those patients to engage with.
Gotcha. And so, what are some of the benefits to a program like yours? Because I just had an interview the other day with Heather Covin of Go Go Done, and she had written an email, or I'm sorry, written an article in Impact Magazine about how to better utilize emails, our patient emails, and social
Mhm,
media, and again focused on retention.
mhm,
And so she outlined, even in the article, like 7 days straight of email drip campaigns from when that patient first starts to help them understand, hey, this is what we're expecting of you, but there are also these hurdles that we're willing to work through you with. Expect these things, work through these things. But we're not talking just those first 7 days. We're talking email campaigns for like post discharge and then follow up stuff
mhm.
and maybe monthly or quarterly newsletters. I mean, there's a lot that
Totally.
owners could put out there, but how do they do that? And so I assume it's a platform like Swell that could help them out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Running any business, but especially a physical therapy clinic, it's a very dynamic process. You got to get them in, then you treat them, and then there's going to be a patient care plan. So there's so many steps. And I think, I've talked to a lot of physical therapy clinics and they'll spend a lot of money going to these marketing boot camps, or they're spending so much time and money marketing and spending all these campaigns. But without follow up and without that next step, you're not actually going to get that business into your practice. So what we
Mhm.
want to do is come in and automate that for you so that yes, you have those things running in the background, but then you have a system that's just going to take care of that and follow up. I mean, yes, there's going to be a small piece to it, but there's so much to worry about that we want to take a burden off of you and kind of take that sales piece away from you and help you engage with those patients, whether it's getting them in the door the first time or continuing to get them in as a customer for life.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about what you recommend physical therapy owners do, whether they use Swell or something else. What are some of the recommendations that you offer?
Yeah, so let's dive into kind of the online platform space and reviews because that's going to be
Okay,
vital to any business, no
for
matter
sure.
what platform they're using. It's an interesting time, and I think it's been coming for a while. But 93% of customers will read online reviews before making a purchase. So even if somebody's like, "Hey, I have the most amazing physical therapist, you got to check him out," they're still going to go check that online review.
Mhm.
So I love the saying, your business is only good as Google says it is, whether or not that's the case. But to the
Yeah.
people that haven't been in, that's all they see. And it's just like a perfect example of social proofing.
Yeah.
So making sure that your online presence is in a good spot is vital, especially in these day and ages where, a lot of these are telemed, or sometimes they're not coming in the office, or they're just checking things out online before then. It's really important. A couple other facts
Yeah.
that I like. So 90%, 97% of consumers use online media. So rather than trying to look elsewhere, they're going to look
Yeah.
online. It's
Yeah.
easier for them, easier for the business. And then another 31% of them are willing to spend more money if it has better reviews. So even
Really?
if you're not, even if you're not the most price effective option, if you have good service and good reviews, they're willing to come to you.
Yeah, I could
Um,
totally see that. If someone were to say get a referral from a physician, whether
mhm.
that's in person or telemed, I can imagine one of the first things they're going to do is like check out, okay, where is this place? What is it? What does their website look like, right? And
Yeah,
inevitably they're going to just punch in maybe physical therapy. Well, nowadays so many physician referrals are like, here's a prescription, go find, I'm sure there's a physical therapist near you. I know so many
yes.
physician offices are doing that nowadays. So they're leaving it up to the patient to find. And so of
Mhm.
course they're going to punch in physical therapy near me, and you want to have good reviews and get yourself moving up that SEO ladder. And so it's vital that we spend a little bit of energy on making sure those reviews are good. And that's not just Google. I'm assuming you're also talking about Yelp
Yeah.
and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, we'll go through. There's a few things in Google's algorithm that they look at, and one of them is diversifying. So they want to make sure that you are across a lot of different websites, not just your Google website. That actually helps with boosting your search rankings there.
What do you mean by that? How? What are some other websites that you could be on?
So, you could do like your website's going to be important. So a lot of times, so like Swell, this can happen there. So if you get reviews on Google, you can repost them to your website. So it's
Okay.
coming from two different sources.
Oh, okay.
Facebook is good. If you have
All
a
right.
blog, sometimes people will use those. Yelp, health grades, whatever they want to there. And there's services like Swell will be able to push review invitations to any of those different platforms,
Oh,
or
okay.
multiple if they want.
Oh, okay.
But that
Gotcha.
is something to be important, or to be aware of just having that across a couple different platforms. Google is king and most people look there, but you have people that maybe are from a different area, or I've talked to people in the Midwest, and apparently Yelp is like their go-to, not really Google. So
Really?
maybe they grew up there and they're coming here, they're still comfortable going to Yelp. We just want to make sure that that company is just kind of keeping aware of all of their platforms there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's like a big, I guess people get a little bit confused, is SEO, paid ads, and then Google reviews, right?
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
get really confusing. Or PPC. So PPC is a paid ad, so it's pay per click.
Yeah.
I worked in a marketing, I actually worked the past year in a marketing department. It was still my role, it was under marketing. I learned a lot. I don't know how people do marketing, but I applaud each and every one of you because it's a hard job.
That's
There's a
true.
lot to manage.
Yeah.
But PPC campaigns are good because you can reach a broader audience and you can target.
Hmm.
So if you are looking to do a certain area, or if you want to start targeting certain keywords like sports injury, maybe you're starting to do a sports injury clinic or something along those lines, you can target those searches. But you and I were talking about this. Anytime I go do a Google search, I see the little ad and I see the little ad, and I usually skip, and then I want to go to those organic ones,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Because you can pay for that. Now with
Uh-huh.
your organic searches on Google, you actually can't pay for increase in rankings.
Okay.
Obviously, it's supposed to be
Sure.
organic.
It's
So there's
organic.
nothing that you can do to get that to move up. So that's one thing. Like PPC is good. Most Google's platform recommends that you do a little bit of both. Keep in mind, you're paying per click, you're not paying per customer. So
Uh-huh.
if they just click on the ad or on your website, you're paying for that, even
Paying
if
for
they
that.
don't convert. So you just want to
Hmm.
make sure that you have a system in place to help get them converted. Um, that can get complicated, but if you want to do like a retargeting campaign with an email based off of those clicks, if you have a system reading that,
I
that's smart.
haven't I haven't met a lot of physical therapists that do the PPC campaigns. Have you talked to anybody that's done much of that?
I have, and usually it's through a marketing agency.
Oh,
And
okay.
I find where they get frustrating is the marketing agency is there to run the campaigns, right? So
Yeah.
the physical therapy clinic will provide the money and then they'll run the campaigns, but then it goes back to the physical therapist and their business to convert those patients.
Yeah.
And the problem is a lot of times they don't have the training or the know how to do it. So
Mm.
it gets really tricky.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, I think it's good. I think more benefit will come from organic. Now, the
Yeah.
nice thing about organic reviews, well, that will also boost your SEO. So search
Mm,
engine optimization is what it stands for.
yeah.
There's a few things. If people are leaving comments in it, you want to make sure that you're responding to those. When they say certain words in there, so it's based off of like a keyword, right? So if
Hmm.
you're looking for back injury physical therapist or something like that, the more times that's mentioned, that will kind of help you boost to the top.
Oh, really?
Um, mhm.
So
The
the
other,
actual words that are in the reviews can improve your organic SEO?
yeah, that can help.
Really?
And then, yeah, and it gets a little bit tricky too, because when you're responding to that, we want to make sure we're HIPAA compliant. So most
Yeah.
of those responses are going to be very general,
Oh, okay.
but kind of what they say, or if they say like a certain doctor's name or something, that can typically help as well.
Okay.
So there's when Google's looking at your local search rankings, it looks at 5 different things. So it's going to be relevance, distance, prominence, quality, and quantity.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like they're never going to release all of their algorithm, but that's been pretty standard.
Okay.
And so those things are going to be ones that we want to look at. So pretty
Hmm.
easy, quick takeaways. Relevance is just how well does this match up for what people are looking for.
Hmm.
So with that said, in your business profile, there's a spot that you can say like physical therapist in Ogden, Utah, or whatever you want
Hmm.
to say. Now, if you're starting to treat different types of injuries, or like I said, like maybe sports therapy, put that in there, physical
Hmm.
therapy and sports therapy, because that way, if someone's researching sports therapists, that's going to pop up under you, not just
Hmm.
physical therapy.
Okay.
So just make sure that you're using words that you would think that they would be searching for. So that's
Hmm.
going to help with relevance.
And where do you put that again?
It's in your Google My Business profile.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a,
In the Google
yep,
profile. Okay.
yep, there's just kind of like a description area. Some people leave it blank. I wouldn't recommend. Just,
Mhm.
you don't have to make it extra long, but just put in a good description of what you guys do there.
Okay.
Next
Especially
one,
if you've got some niches or if you specialize in something, you
yeah.
want to make sure that's in there. So as
hmm
people are looking for, say, physical therapy for runners, then you might want to
Yes.
add something, some kind of descriptor like that in your Google profile.
Yeah. And what I would
Okay.
recommend for that, it might, let's say the clinic is like, we really target runners, but maybe not a ton of runners are looking for that. So I would maybe say like athletes, because that's going
Okay.
to be more general and you're going to be able to get more. Now,
Okay.
if you want to just target runners, you can, but just when you're putting those things in there, think in mind, like, what is the average person going to look for?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They're not as targeted necessarily, even though
That's
you
true.
might be, they're going to be more broad. So
Okay.
kind of think in the buyer's mind for
Okay.
some of those
All
things.
right. Good. Good. Good advice.
Yeah. Next one is distance. You're going to want to make sure that your address is correct in there because that's one of the things that it'll look at. So near me, right? What does near me
Yeah.
look like? So you just want to make sure that that's accurate. If you have a couple of different locations, just make sure that they each have their own Google My Business page. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
pulling in.
Yeah. And sometimes, yeah, I've had that before where it's used an old address from a previous business that I was in, and
Yeah.
then we had to update that. And or sometimes if your business is linked to your home address or for some
hmm
reason or other, it's going to bring up your home. So you want to make sure it is the right address
Yes.
for sure.
And it's funny, I was just talking to one of my physical therapy offices the other day, and they were like, we were at our house and did physical therapy near me, and our location didn't even pull up. And it's because it's using all 5 of these things.
Mm.
So if it thinks that, okay, even though this one's closest to you, I still found a better one that's a little bit further away, but I think it'll fit your match better,
Oh,
that's what it's going to pull.
interesting.
Because Google is built for the user's experience, not
Yeah.
necessarily the business experience.
Okay.
So just, pretend like you're a buyer as you're kind of getting some of these set up because it
Yeah.
really will help.
Okay.
Yeah, the next one is prominence. So this one is just how well they're known online, kind of what I was saying earlier. So just diversifying that. SEO is going to help. If you have, what I recommend, so if you have a Facebook page, you don't necessarily need to direct people there, but like with our Swell platform, if someone leaves you a Google review, you can repost it to Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to do double the work, but it's kind of helping that SEO. So you'll pop up a little bit quicker as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. Next one, these ones are very self-explanatory, but quality. So what we like to recommend is we want 4.7 or above stars. That's typically people don't go below that. The other thing to keep in mind, and maybe this is just me, but a lot of people feel like this is there's first page, then you can go to second page, and then you can go to third page. Majority, like 90 something percent of people will make a decision based off that first page.
Yeah,
So
totally.
even if you're like, well, I have way more reviews than these top guys, it's like, well, let's still get you to the top of the list because then you're going to be that much more seen because people don't take the time to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is just quantity. So The way that Google looks at it is going to be number of reviews, fresh, and then frequent.
Okay.
So even if you had, say, 500 reviews, but you didn't get a review in the last 4 months, it's going to be like, well, we don't know if their service is still that great. So what
Oh.
it's going to look for is to make sure that those are coming in frequently and that those are being responded to.
Well, and
So
I think you see that with a lot of physical therapists is they think, I've got to get blank number, or our goal is to get blank number of Google reviews. And so they
yeah.
push out this program, they get a bunch of reviews, maybe they get 40, 50 reviews in a 1 month period, and then it falls
hmm
off. And
Yep.
so they don't come back around to it for another year or two. And it really,
Totally.
you're saying that, yeah, that might help you for that month, but then
hmm
the effectiveness is lost after that. Huh?
Yeah. And like, think about it if it was you, right? So for instance, a couple years ago, I went to Hawaii. I was only single in there, so I got the short end of the stick and I was sleeping on the pull-out couch. So I don't know if it was that or surfing or what, but I did something to my back and I had never been to a physical therapist before, but I was like, well, I got to find one. So that's all that I could do was go online and search, right? So even if I saw one that had great reviews, but it had been a long time, it as a consumer, I'm like, oh, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe let's look for somebody that just got a review last week that they had a great experience.
That's true. I kind of feel the same way. If I'm looking for, even in product searches in Amazon or something like that, I want to see
Yes.
something that's a little bit more fresh, not something from 2017, right?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
the more you can keep that relevant and up to date, I think that lends more credence to you. For one reason or
100%.
another, I don't know what it is, but that recency means something to me as a consumer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really will help within those rankings there. And then the other thing is just make sure you're responding to those. So it doesn't have to be anything that's like super detailed. Again, it'll be HIPAA compliant. The Swell platform will let you respond right in Swell. So you don't have to go check like Facebook, Google, Yelp, whatever. You can do it there. And then you can have like templated responses. So if it's a
Mm,
5-star, awesome. Thanks so much for coming in. Glad you had a good experience or
gotcha.
something. Even if the patient doesn't see it, the algorithm really likes that because it will help
Mm.
boost.
And
So
so, as you, I mean, there, a lot of what you're talking about has to become then like a system or an ongoing process that is built into the physical therapy experience from the administrative end, right?
yeah.
And so, there's got to be a process to that, and so I'm sure you walk owners through this and developing a
Mhm.
system to make this just an ongoing thing and not a one and done project, huh?
100%. And it was funny. I was talking to someone the other day and they just invested in a new laser, it was 60 grand or something like that. And they were
Really?
stoked on it.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it's like, okay, well, that's awesome. And you have a great plan in place of how to upsell that. But if you don't get patients in the door, what are your opportunities to do that? So
Mhm.
it really is kind of that full cycle of like, got to get them in the door, then we can give them the treatment, then let's get them a review so that other people can see that. And it really is
Mm.
that loop. We understand like there's so much going on. And as a physical therapist, your number one priority is patient care. You're not as worried about some of these things. And so that's where we want to come in as a platform and say, like, we know you have other focuses. Let us take over and automate a lot of this so you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about it.
Mhm.
While it's important, we can kind of help lift some of that for you.
Yeah. And what do you find as and that kind of platform is definitely needed, because a lot of people in my audience, they're just like, dude, I'm treating full time and then I'm trying to run my
Yeah.
business on the weekends. I don't know how you expect me to do all this stuff. Well, the reason I bring people like you on is I'm trying to say, hey, there are resources out there. Maybe you'll have to look, or here's Baylee sitting here right now that can help you and give you an idea of, okay, let's automate these things for you. And
Mhm.
then it's a part of the discharge process, or part of the new patient process or
Mhm.
discharge process, you name it,
Yeah.
ends up being, okay, put them into this email system. Okay,
Yep.
discharge process means we need to get a review, or at least get them an email or text that day or the following day to please write a review, and here's the link. So it makes it as easy as possible for the patient to do it as well. Because if we're
Exactly.
putting through a lot of hoops to give us a review, then it's
Mhm.
more than likely not going to happen, right?
Yep.
So that's where a program like, and a platform like yours is so vital to physical therapy owners' success and retention, engagement, and all these things that we're
Mhm.
talking about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and we talked about this as well, but I just got back from a trip and had a great experience, was asked to leave a review and I didn't have the link and I couldn't remember what it was. And so it's not even that I wasn't willing to, it's just it wasn't easy for me and we're all very lazy and we're busy and we have a lot going on as a patient. So making it very simple for the patient, but also simple for your office is going to be huge for
Mhm.
both ends to kind of maximize that.
Hmm.
So, you know, it anything with like a system or a software, it's only as good as your training is and as your office is going to use it, right? But
Yeah.
that's kind of where we want to come in is like, even if you were using it only 10%, so much of this is automated that you should still see a good increase,
Hmm.
even if you didn't have time to touch it.
Hmm.
Now, if we can kind of go in there and look at some things and look at some metrics, there's actually a lot that you can learn. So, you know, if you got a review and you wanted to go down by practitioner, if you wanted to just look at, okay, who treated them or who checked them in or what was the service that they got, you can actually filter that down. So like, hey, this is getting a lot of great reviews. Maybe we should do a
Oh.
marketing push for this. Or,
Oh, okay.
hey, it's end of year. Let's run a promotion for the
Hmm.
holidays or something
Hmm.
like that. You can get as creative as you want, but just having that platform there to make it easy, like you said, for the patient is going to be huge.
I gotcha. And what do you guys recommend? More text? Do you recommend more email? Which has been better responded to in the past?
Text is going to be best. I mean,
Really?
again, think about it. If it was you, how quickly are you to respond to an email versus a text?
Mm.
As a human being, we're just in there a little bit more, I think, and especially as the generations are getting younger and younger, it's a quicker response.
Hmm.
The other nice thing too is we can have it go out from their actual business number if they want. So then those
Oh, okay.
patients will recognize. If not, we can just do a local area code, but it'll never
Hmm.
be a short code. But it's a little bit easier and quicker for them. The other thing that we recommend and we can have set up automatically is a lot of offices or systems will send it out right after or right when the patient's in the office. But think about it, like maybe you have to run back to work or you're taking your kids to soccer practice or you just have things going on. And so
Yeah.
you want to do it, you just don't have the time.
Yeah.
So we'll usually send it out in that evening, say between
Hmm.
like 6:30 and 7:30 p.m. when they're home settled and be like, okay, now I have 2 seconds to do
Hmm.
this. With that, if they don't, we can send a reminder the next day
Okay.
or in 7 days, a sequence like you were talking about. So we want to
Hmm.
really capture that patient.
Do you actually find that 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. time frame is a like a magical hour?
It really has, yeah, it's been kind of
Really?
nuts because, yeah, one thing that's nice too with our platform is we're Google sponsored, so we're powered by Google, which kind of
Hmm.
helps. So that is going to be something that helps respond with that. But then also we find that that hour has really increased it.
Hmm.
So what the number that we say, keep in mind, this is going to sound really low, but for reviews and for engagement, we see about 10% of those reviews that are being sent out responded to. That
Hmm.
seems again really low, but keep in mind if you were at zero, as long as we're getting like say one a day, if you're seeing
Yeah.
12 patients a day and we can get one a day, that's going to be massive for the business.
Oh, okay. I see. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so in those texts, well, first of all, do you have to get permission to send out regular text to a patient like that?
Nope. So we're HIPAA compliant, CAN-SPAM compliant, all those things.
Okay.
The only thing is if they want to unsubscribe, they can just click stop and
Oh,
it'll
okay.
unsubscribe them. So if
Okay.
they don't want to receive that, they don't have to. But that's typically why we want to do some sort of a value with it, right? So like, hey, thanks so much for coming in. Here's next steps for your treatment. And could you
Okay.
also leave us a review?
Oh,
Because if that
okay.
patient is
Gotcha.
saying like, hey, this is benefiting my treatment plan, I don't want to unsubscribe from this kind of thing.
Hmm. I see. And so there could be a lot of value if that first, second, or third text is, hey, thank you for coming in. Here's a link to your home exercise program if you have that kind of thing set up.
Yeah.
And number three, if you don't mind, if you've had a good experience, please share your review online. And here's a link for that. That makes it very simple and easy for them in all three
Mhm.
phases.
Absolutely. And we can even do more specific ones. So depending on the EMR system that you're using, if we're integrated with them, we can even pull based off of the person that was seen with them. So if you want to have like a certain
Oh,
doctor's
okay.
picture, or we can do the logo, and then we can even pull in dynamic fields. So of course their name, a certain treatment that they were seen for.
Oh,
So
wow.
based off of the code. So it looks more personalized to them and people respond better to that.
Hmm.
But again, the office doesn't have to do anything with it. It's just set up
Yeah.
and good to go.
That's cool. And so are there some EMRs that you do work seamlessly with and others that you don't?
Yeah, we have like 90% of the market.
Oh, okay.
Ones that don't, we can still work with. What we just do is a CSV upload of the
Oh, okay.
patients.
I see.
So it's not a problem.
Hmm.
But yeah, most of them we work with.
I got you. And what are some of the other things that you might recommend owners either email out or text and request? Or, we've talked, I know a lot of owners might work off of NPS scores,
Mhm.
or they might work off wanting other kinds of feedback. What are some other things that owners might be looking for with these texts and emails?
Yeah, it really depends on the office. I think some people really love data and so they want to get that feedback. We offer NPS. We can just send those out as well. So that's just going to be like a, how highly would you recommend this, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing.
Yeah.
NPS stands for Net Promoter Score, as you are probably aware of. And then we also have a system that's going to be like a 10 question survey. So if you want to drill down a little bit more, you can do that. Keep in mind, you're going to see a higher drop off per click that patient will do.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. That's why like our reviews are just a one click right to the site kind of thing.
And
so
if they're doing a survey, do you recommend a certain number of questions, considering, you know, it does take more clicks? Is it better to have a 3 or 4 question survey versus a 10 question survey, or have you found that matters?
You know, it kind of just depends on what they're looking to find out.
Okay.
So, you know, like if it's about a certain new laser that they got or a certain treatment that they got, or if it's a new person in there, maybe you only need a few questions. But if you're really like, okay, I feel like we have a hole within our system, we need to get some more information on it.
Okay.
Again, I probably wouldn't send that out to every patient that you see.
Okay.
And that conversation usually is a little bit better of like in the office, hey, we're actually learning on or working on how to better our system here. Would you mind filling out a short survey for us?
Sure.
That goes a long way.
Okay.
But that's kind of there's that. The other thing that is big as well is like if you have, again, think about this if you were a consumer before going. So like with mine, when I booked it, I didn't even know if they accepted my insurance. I was just like, they have great reviews. Their website looks awesome. I just need help right now.
Yeah. Okay.
But on their website, if you have a web chat feature that they can actually just communicate with you before having to make that call, you know, as a patient, sometimes we're either at work when we don't have time to do that, or we don't want to be upsold and we're just trying to do some due diligence. Having a system that they can communicate with the office without having to make that actual connection is big. So we can do a web chat feature, and cool. It's nice because it goes right to the message board. So you can manage any web chat feature or web chats, Facebook messages, or text messages all in one place.
Oh, really?
So it makes it easy for the office.
And that just comes into the Swell app that's on your computer or phone?
Exactly. Yep. Both.
Interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, what are anything else that you want to share in regards to value that you could provide for the audience, or any other gadgets or cool things about Swell that you want to share?
I'm trying to think. We've gone over so much. There's a few other systems within there, but basically like what we want to do is not take away a front desk person per se, but if we can save time so that they can focus on other things, we basically want to be like another person in the office, right? But it's a lot cheaper too.
That's the last thing I want to do for my front desk person, because I know I was very sheepish about adding more to their plate, because yes, they're answering the phones and they're scheduling patients. They're trying to engage to the person that's coming in. They might be verifying insurances, which takes forever and is a headache, or dealing with a patient that's trying to reschedule. The last thing you want to do is come in and say, hey, can you add this, do this more? But if this is something that, like you said, is kind of pushed over to them, they get some push notifications like, hey, so-and-so has got a question about that. And then maybe it's easier for them to type and enter, because now on top of that, trying to ask them to get the review from the patient could be really hard. And so if that's an automated process that doesn't necessarily have to go through the front desk, instead they maybe just click on that patient and it starts that campaign, that would make things a lot easier. And
they don't even have to click on the patient. It can just be scheduled. Like if you're like, I want it to go the day of, great, it starts. So it's nice there. And like the system, you know, it's ironic that I work for a tech company and I'm not super technical myself, but it is very simple to use. And we've designed it for that, you know, because I've talked with tons of offices over the years and they're like, I'm just so comfortable with what I have that it scares me to switch platforms, or I don't know how to use that. Or maybe, you know, they just graduated from high school or whatever it is. We want it to be really easy for anyone to use. So the Swell system is pretty self-explanatory that way.
Well, and it's at this time that, especially with the pandemic of 2020, because we're doing this interview at the end of 2020, and the way we were engaging with patients in 2019 is completely different now, and it needs to be. I think it's kind of forced owners to recognize that they need to be a little bit more socially engaged, and not rely on the in-person physician referrals or the community events, if you will. So we have to, well, let's admit it, physical therapists are usually a couple decades behind technologically. And so we got to get away from the paper.
You said it, not me.
And so it kind of forced us into the 21st century. And that's where a platform like yours can be really helpful.
Yeah. And the one thing that, it's you can look at it one of two ways. It's either a blessing or a curse, but usually people don't have a physical therapist on hand. It's not like their dentist that they're seeing every 6 months,
It's
right?
true.
It's like if they get an injury, then they're going to go look for that. And so
Hmm.
it's like if your house was flooding and you're like in a panic, you're going to quickly go online to find somebody. It's kind of the same thing with this is they don't
Hmm.
necessarily have time to be doing all this due diligence, to ask around, to go to practitioner or a normal physician, ask for a referral. So really their online platform is kind of like the number one place that they're going to get business these days.
Hmm. That's right. And what I like about your platform is it can be text, it can be email, or it can be both. Because
Mhm.
yeah, as you've got a current patient, maybe text is more appropriate. But if you're sending out information to a patient from 2 years ago, I don't know if text is necessarily appropriate, but you can still do the email thing
Yeah,
and keep them engaged so that you do become their physical therapist, just like you have your own dentist that you go to. When you have an
exactly.
injury that crops up, you want to make sure that you are that physical therapist that they go to on a regular basis. And so I like that you guys can use text to your advantage, you can use email to your advantage, and you can also maintain that engagement forever, especially at post discharge, to make sure you stay in their in their mindset
Yep.
when they friends or family members do get injured.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it depends on their injury, but you can have a system set up of like, okay, I treated you. We had our 3-week treatment series, but I want to check on you in 3 months and 6 months to see how you're
Yes.
healing or how things are going. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times offices just don't have time for that. They're just swamped
No.
and they don't have time to do that follow up. And a lot of times patients don't remember that. So
No.
if we can just have something set up where we're reactivating those patients and getting them back into the practice,
Hmm.
that's just going to be huge for them.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, if you could share your contact information if people are interested in the
Yeah.
program, go ahead. Where how can we get in touch with you?
So I will share my email. It's Baylee at Swell, SWELLCX.com. So you can email me there. I'll even give you my cell phone number. It's 801-708-9215. Or
Hmm.
if you just want to go around and peek at the website before, like I'm saying, before you're actually communicating with
Yeah,
someone,
exactly.
it's just swellcx.com. You can even schedule a demo from there if you want, or you can just text me. And if you want to see more of the product and how it works, let me know and we can get that hooked up for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be on and sharing some information for PT owners. Hopefully, they take advantage of it and utilize something, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Something technological to get those reviews and also stay engaged with their patients.
absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Nathan. I had a blast.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.